Are you ready? Because I'm gonna be trying to do the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, also known as HRCYED round 2, I guess. I wasn't around for round 1 and I'm a little late for round 2 also. Apparently it started back in June or July, one of them, not sure, but I'm gonna start it in October. I'll link the original video down below so you can kind of see like what the actual rules are and all of that. The creator goes by Q and she did it from her birthday to her next birthday. So I figured that I could do something like that because my birthday's in October. So I'm gonna do it from October to October and it'll be okay. I'll just follow the rules from one October to the next October year. And this is gonna be episode 1 following that journey. I'm planning to have one per month. So it'll be like between the 2 months or at the end of the month or the very beginning of the next month. It would be kind of like part TBR, part reading vlog, and then part wrap up. So we can see like the books that I've read in the past month, how they fall into the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. Now mind you, I hadn't really planned to do this until up recently when I found out about it. So most of the books in my October TBR, I didn't really pick out for this. I think it'd be fun to just read what I want to read and see how it fits in. And then in that last week every month, I'll read books specifically for the challenge. And then hopefully we'll be able to finish the challenge by the end of the year, well, not the end of this year, but the end of the 12-month period. That might be a little bit difficult, but we'll see how it goes. I might have to be a little bit more cognizant of it in the future. I just thought it would be interesting and fun to do. So that's what we're gonna be doing. I've also seen a lot of people do this with like different genres. So like you could read mostly romance, for example, and still be able to do this challenge, whereas I'm gonna be doing mostly fantasy because, I mean, you see my shelves, right? They are mostly fantasy. So basically how the challenge works, there is a bingo board and you want to make a blackout on the bingo board. There's like a whole Google Sheets for this too, which I just decided to use what was already available to us. Basically, I've already filled in some of the books that I have already read and my currently reading books. So that's currently 5 books that are currently on my sheet. So Dracula by Bram Stoker. I finished that book a couple of weeks ago in the month of October, which I'm using for the spooky creatures and the even bigger rainbow prompt, which we will get to. Then the Women's Suite 11, which I finished that same week, was also for the even bigger rainbow and the around a world prompt. Those are pretty easy prompts to do, but like I hadn't picked that book specifically for this challenge, so it fit those prompts, so that's why I chose it. And then we have The Women's War, which I finished last week. If you missed that, I did do a full reading vlog on it, and for that we're doing the By the Hundreds and the Subgenre of Choice challenge. And then the 2 books that I'm currently reading are A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen and The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. And for A Fate Inked in Blood, we're going to be doing the series Stairway because it's the first book in a duology, and the challenge yourself, which we will get to. And then for The Devils, I'm currently looking at doing Subgenres of Choice, which I'll explain in a second, and the Spooky Creature. Actually, I think I'll change that one. I think I changed that one, so I might have to make a new one for The Devils. The reason being is because since I made that spreadsheet, I actually added another book that I started yesterday and I've been reading all day today, and I'm almost done with it, and that's Of Monsters and Mainframes by Barbara Truelove, which this cover, by the way, is just like so colorful. So I'm definitely using it for the Even Bigger Rainbow challenge, but I will also be using it for the Spooky Creatures. So I think I decided to use this one for the Spooky Creatures instead of the Devils because they both have a werewolf in it, but this one, I feel like the werewolf is just more prominent, if that makes sense. But I'm really loving this. It's like sci-fi horror, but with like fantasy type creatures in it, and it's just so much fun. I'm enjoying it so much. Let me explain the prompts a little bit. So the first one is the By the Hundreds challenge. Basically what this is you have to read one book that fits into the page amount of like 100 to 199, 200 to 299, so on and so forth. I did pick out a few books that could be potentials for this challenge, but it's all up in the air. Honestly, this one's probably going to be super easy to get through. Then we have the 24-hour readathon, which I was considering doing it today because the rules for this 24-hour readathon is just to read as many books as you can from when you wake up in the morning to when you fall asleep at night. So the thing is, I woke up really late today, so I kind of felt like, but I will definitely be picking a Sunday sometime in the next couple of months to do this because I feel like the end of the year is just like really good time for reading too. Then we have the Subgenres of Choice challenge. For this, I decided to go with the fantasy genre, and then we have to pick 5 different subgenres in which to read each of the book, which fantasy obviously was gonna be my choice. And for this, I've already chosen The Women's War for high fantasy, The Devils for grimdark fantasy. I did want to see if I can go a little bit out of my comfort zone. I read some fantasy subgenres that I don't normally read, like maybe cozy fantasy or lit RPG, that sort of thing. So we'll see. I put a couple potentials on there that are really popular popular that I might want to get to. Then we have the series Staircase. So for this one, you have to read one standalone, one duology, one trilogy, all within the challenge, and then one series that's 4 or more books, or at least that you have 4 or more books that you could read in the series. So the example that she gave was like read 4 books in the Discworld series, which I am reading the Discworld series, but I feel like a little bit of a cop-out because all of the Discworld books are super short, and there are a lot of longer than 4 books series that I want to read. So there's a lot that I can do with this. I think duology I thought would be potentially a harder one for me to find, so that's why when I ended up picking A Fading Blood last week, that felt like a good choice for the duology just because it does have a second book and I'm enjoying it so far. So I've decided to do A Fading Blood for the duology challenge. Haven't fully decided on any of the other ones yet. Then there are a few that I probably am just like gonna wait till later. So like the award season, that's coming up at the end of the year. I'll wait till like November to December to start looking at that. But with the TBR game challenge, I think I'm gonna wait till next year. I just don't have time to do like full TBR videos and stuff like that for the end of this year. So I'm gonna wait for next year. The next one is the next 10 years challenge. And that one's a lot of fun because you just have to read a book that was published in the last 10 years. So from 2015 to 2025, I think I'm gonna probably go to 2026 because I'm going to be ending in 2026, so it'll be like 11 years, not 10, but that's okay. And I put a couple potentials on there that I can read, but I think this one should be pretty easy to get, honestly, because I read books from all different time periods. Then we have all the adaptation challenge, which I think this is probably one of the harder ones to do because there's different types of adaptations, but you don't have to read the book if you've already read the book. You can watch, like, let's say if you've read a book and there's a TV adaptation for it, you can watch the TV show. I think for this, that's what I'm gonna try and do, is watch the adaptation of either books that I love or read the books of popular adaptations. But that is the goal for right now. I don't have specific ones that I want to do, but I kind of really want to do Wicked because not only is it a musical, it was a Broadway play, which was a musical, but like back in the day, like when it was on Broadway, I actually went to see it on Broadway in New York, and like it's now really popular again because of the movie. So I kind of want to read the book. I've seen the play, I've seen the movie, obviously, and I kind of want to read the book. So that's one that I probably definitely will do, but I'm not sure about any of the others, honestly. Then we have the Disability Rep Challenge, which if you guys have recommendations for this, please send them my way, because especially if you have like fantasy recommendations of a disability representation, because I have been having the hardest time finding actual recommendations for this. This might be one of those where I branch out a little bit and read some romance, read some literary fiction or contemporary fiction or whatever, just to meet this challenge, because I feel like there's not a whole lot in fantasy. There might be in romantasy though, so maybe I can try some romantasy for that. This one I'm having a little bit more trouble with, but I will definitely be working on that one. Then we have the Heritage Month Challenge. It's inspired by the Heritage Month, which you can read them during the month or you can read them whenever. Personally, I lean towards the whenever part, because if I'm planning this ahead of time, why am I waiting for the month to read them? You know what I mean? So I think I'll probably just read them like as I find the books that will fit this challenge. I'm just going to include them. Then we have the Translation Challenge. This one I'm really excited for because I love reading translated works, and I have quite a few that I'm excited to get to. So I have a couple of potentials there. Basically, you have to read 5 books that were translated from another language. Then the Around the World Challenge, read 1 book from every continent. This one's a lot of fun. Obviously, I already did one of this, The Woman in Suite 11, which was set in Switzerland, so it's Europe, and it actually also goes to London, I believe, in that same book, so it is in multiple parts of Europe, so I think that works really well. And I always do like reading books set in other places in the world. This one I am gonna go a little bit out of my comfort zone for though, because most fantasy books are not set in our world, while these are obviously gonna be set in our world. Then we have the Even Bigger Rainbow, so it's bigger than the rainbow from the last challenge, and basically is to read a book that is the color of the rainbow. And then there's a couple of other ones where there's like gold and silver, and then there's a book with more than 7 colors, which I already picked of Monsters and Mainframes for the more than 7 colors because I feel like that just fits so well. I love like just how colorful the book is. And then I picked black for Dracula because obviously most of the covers for Dracula are black, and then The Woman in Suite 11 is very teal on the cover. There are a lot of teal books, but this one I just felt like fit really well as well. The next one is actually surprisingly hard, which is the Make a Quote Challenge. So you pick a quote and then you have to use words from the titles or author's name for the book to fit that quote. Originally was going with the longer quote and then realized I'm gonna have to read a lot of books to fit this quote, and it is harder than you would think to find books that fit quotes. So I ended up going with an Ernest Hemingway quote, which is, "There is no friend as loyal as a book," which the hardest one to find a book for was actually loyal, which was like, how? Like, how is that the hardest word? I thought that would be the easiest word, but no, it was the hardest one. Like, as was easier to find books with as in the title than loyal. Actually, there was pretty hard too. And then there were none by Agatha Christie. It has been on my TBR forever, so I think that's a good one for me to get to. This one's gonna be pretty hard. I'm definitely going out of my comfort zone to read some of these, but I think it's a lot of fun. Then we have the spooky creatures, which is right up my alley, and we have to read books with, I think it's like vampires, werewolves, mermaids, fae, zombies, or like undead creatures, and then like some other creatures. I think the hardest one for me was probably gonna be mermaids, because I feel like a lot of the books that I read don't have mermaids in it, but I think this is also one that could probably come up naturally. Like, for example, I had chosen Dracula for vampires because it is like the ultimate vampire book, but then I'd originally chosen The Devils for werewolf, but then Of Monsters and Mainframes also had a werewolf in it, so like, which one do I choose? I don't know, but I think I could choose The Devils for other things as well, so I'm gonna go with Of Monsters and Mainframe for that one. But yeah, I think this one should be pretty easy to get to just in my regular everyday reading, just because of the type of books that I read. Then we have the Become the Avatar challenge, which is just so much fun. Basically, for the 4 elements, you want to read a book with either the title or the cover has one of the 4 elements in it. But if you do it, you have to do all 4 for one or the other. So all 4 in which the cover has one of the 4 elements, or all 4 in which the words in the title has all the 4 elements. 1 element for each. So for example, like Water Moon was one of my potential choices because it has the word water in it. That one is going to be a lot of fun. I think I might do both cover and title just because I feel like that one's just a lot of fun. The next one is Complete Any Readathon. This is another one that I'm going to be letting my future self figure out next year because I just don't have the bandwidth this year. The next one is also surprisingly hard. That's Animals Are Better. So reading a book in which animals are a prominent feature in the book. Specifically, there's different types of animals. So pets, exotic pet, wild creatures, and then there's a 4th one. It's on the screen so you guys can see what it is. The reason I'm having trouble for this is not because I don't read books with animals in them, but because usually a lot of times it's not like in the synopsis of the book, or it's not as part of the title. So it's just hard to choose a book for this, but I feel like this might come up naturally, hopefully. So we'll see how that one goes. I'm gonna try and make that one come up and see if I can get that one finished naturally before like specifically looking for books for it, because I had the hardest time finding books. If you guys have recommendations for this one too, I'd be so happy to take them. Then we have the Queer Alphabet Round 2, which is reading a book with each of the different like queer representations. This one's usually pretty easy to find, but if you have recommendations of fantasy books with any of these representations in it, I would definitely consider them, but I think this one should be pretty easy to get through. And then we have the favorite HRCYED 1 prompt, which for this one, I don't know what I want to do, because my actual favorite HRCYED 1 prompt is reading the alphabet, but you'd have to read literally 26 books for that, which is a lot. So I was thinking of maybe doing the 500+ page book in one day instead, which is only 1 book, but you just have to read it really fast, which I think I can do. So I haven't decided which one yet, but I'm leaning towards the 500+ book. But there are other prompts as well that I might try. I probably will let my future self decide this one. Then we have the BIPOC challenge, which is read 10 books by BIPOC authors. I think this one will come up naturally for me. I read a lot of BIPOC authors just naturally, so I think this one should be fine. Then we have the extended new release challenge, which for this one we have to read 1 new release within 60 days of it coming out for every month. So my October one we're gonna have to get to as soon as possible. I'm gonna try and do one this week, but that really depends on what my library has available to me, because most of them it's like wait 3 to 6 weeks before you can get it, which is a little rough. We are gonna try and get through that one this week, but basically every month we have to read a new release. Then we have the Challenge Yourself one, which this one is fun. So what I've been doing recently is I have been trying to whittle down my physical TBR. Specifically, I have a lot of book of the month books that I have not read that I'm kind of like iffy on. So I kind of want to do reader on haul for my book of the month books. So I want to read 12 book of the month books. Whether I keep them or not doesn't really matter, but actually read 12 of my book of the month books over the next year. And that will be 12 that I currently own, not new ones. So I have like 1.5 shelf worth of book of the month books. They're not all unread, but there's a lot of, and for that, actually, I already started that technically with A Fadington Blood, which happens to be be a book of the month book that is part of my physical TBR that I'm currently reading. So that worked out for me, but yeah, that one I think is going to be a little bit harder for me just because book of the month, while I really like reading more diversely, especially new releases more diversely, they are generally picks that are things that I wouldn't have picked up on my own. So that's why it's harder for me to get to them. Next is the nonfiction challenge, which is read 5 nonfiction books, which should be no problem for me. I have tons of nonfiction books on my TBR, so I will definitely be getting to that. And then last is Q's reviews and recs. So I actually did look up a few of hers, and one of them that she did recently is Catabasis by R.F. Kuang, which I really want to read this week. So that's going to be one that I work on this week as well. So this was a really long intro, but I do want to talk a little bit about the books that I'm going to be reading this week. As I said, I'm already in the middle of The Devils, of Monsters in Mainframes, and A Fate Inked in Blood. So I should be finishing both A Fate Inked in Blood and Of Monsters in Mainframes like very early on this week. Like if not today, then tomorrow, which is when I'm probably going to pick up Catabasis. I kind of want this one to be somewhat of a slow read though, so I don't know if I'm going to finish this one this week, but I want to finish it this week. But it really depends on just how fast paced this is, and I have a feeling this is going to be a little bit slower paced, so I don't think I'm going to finish it this week. And I do want to finish 2 other books this week. I will be doing the new release. It's going to be audiobook for my library, so when I finish The Devils, we'll talk about the new release, but I think it's time to do TBR spin for my next physical TBR book, because I'm going to be finishing, I'm so close to finishing A Fate Inked in Blood, so my next physical TBR book, and no, Catabasis doesn't count unless I actually end up picking it with the wheel spin. It doesn't count just because it's a book that I literally just bought for the sake of reading it, and it's not like on my backlog physical TBR, if that makes sense. Last week I was doing like a random number generator for this, but I saw a lot of people using like this wheel, and it just looks better on camera in my opinion, so I decided to get the wheel as well. So basically for the wheel, it has all 8 of my shelves. So we have the 4 shelves that you see in front of you, which are my middle grade shelf. These are all fantasy shelves, these 4 shelves. My middle grade, my YA/romantasy shelf, my adult fantasy shelf, and then my high fantasy shelf. The adult fantasy shelf is like regular adult fantasy. There might be some high fantasy there. And then the high fantasy shelf is the adult high fantasy, which is a large portion of my shelf. Then under the TV, we saw last week, is my book of the month books. Then on the other side, we have my sci-fi shelf, my other genre shelf, which is like the short shelf in the middle, and then the far shelf is my classic shelf with some book of the month books at the top, but it's mostly classics. So let's spin and see which shelf we get. Okay, we got the classic shelf. Oh, I'm a little nervous about this, but okay, we got the classic shelf. And then after we get the actual shelf, then we need to pick which of 5 bookshelf shelves to pick from. Alrighty, so we got the classic shelf over here. So the top 2 shelves are book of the month book, and then the bottom 3 shelves are all classic. So 1, 2, book of the month, 3, 4, and 5 are classic. So we'll see which one I end up getting. It's 4, which means I'm going to be reading a classic this month, which I'm super nervous about. And then what I did for this is I just created a random numbers 1 through 20. If I don't have a full 20 unread book, which are the books that are turned around, by the way, in case you were wondering why I have books that are backwards, those are my unread books. I've just found seeing it as a blank slate is less intimidating to me. And also I like my shelves better when I see like my favorites on them, which are the books that I've read and decided to keep. So we're going to count and see which classic I end up getting. Please don't be War and Peace. I'm pretty sure War and Peace is on the bottom shelf. It's not on the 4th shelf. Thank God. Okay. I don't know if I have 20 unread books on the shelf or not. So if I don't have 20, then we'll just start over at the beginning and count until I get to number 20. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look, okay, I've read that book. Okay. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So it's actually book 2, but it's also 20. Oh, this is actually perfect. This is actually perfect. Let's stand back up. Okay, I promise you I did not plan for this because I did not plan to read a classic this week, but we're gonna end up reading As I Lay Dying by, let me say that again. We're gonna read As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. This is a book that I picked up in college because I was in creative writing classes in college, and Faulkner was one of the authors they recommended us reading, and I never did get around to reading his stuff. But the reason why this is actually perfect is for the HRCYED challenge, there is the quote challenge, which As I Lay Dying was one of the books that I picked as the as word for it. So I knew I was gonna have to read this at some point within the next year. I mean, there are other as books out there, but this was one that I've been meaning to read like since college and I just haven't gotten to it. So I probably wouldn't have picked it up without the push of this anyway. So I feel like it just ended up working out perfectly. We'll see how this goes though. I don't know. I just came off of a reading slump and this is a lot. I mean, it's short at least. At least it has that going for it. But we'll see how this goes, because I've never read Faulkner before. I've heard he has very flowery writing, which may or may not work for me. So I just finished Of Monsters and Mainframes by Barbara Truelove? I think that's who it's by. I enjoyed this so much. I blame this book on why I haven't finished A Fading in Blood yet, because I just keep getting distracted by this one. It is so much fun. I will say it dragged a little bit in the middle there, but the beginning, the ending, the majority of this book was so much fun. It is following two AI. I mean, it's following more than just two AI. There are like multiple points of view, but I would say the two AI are the two like main points of view, which I love sci-fi books that have AI as the main character. It's just so much fun. And there is a bit of a romance with the AI, which I love. This is not really purely a sci-fi book, very much like a horror in space type of book. So we've read Night Flyers by George R. R. Martin, I think kind of like that, but it takes like some of our classic horror books that we know and love, like Dracula and Frankenstein, The Call of Cthulhu, and then goes, what if we did this in space? Which is just fun, and I enjoyed this so much. I think part of the reason why this worked so well was because I had read Dracula, so I can kind of like compare the two, and it was fun. I'm giving it 4.5 stars. So after I finish Of Monsters and Mainframes, I decided to pick up The Everlasting by Alix. Harrow. The reason why is because I do still need to read my new release this month, and I had a couple of things that I could have read, but I just wasn't in the mood for any of them. This book literally came out yesterday, so I feel like it's perfect. A time travel novel, first of all, which I love, and it's from one of my auto-buy authors. So even though I couldn't get it in my library, I just decided to get the audiobook, and so far I'm enjoying it. It's kind of giving The Time Traveler's Wife meets King Arthur, but like gender bent and in a good way. So I'm really enjoying it. But we'll see how this goes. Alrighty, so I just finished A Fading in Blood by Danielle Jensen. This was so much fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I will say I guessed pretty much all of the twists. I did get a little bit of help from like kind of spoiling myself, but I think I would have guessed that even if I hadn't spoiled myself. So like I'm not like that annoyed by it, but also I feel like plot wise I was enjoying it a lot, but like I said, super predictable. I wish that she had been able to like surprise me about something, because there were a lot of twists which were good, but I wish she would be able to surprise me. Like I said, they were just super obvious, and in some ways that's a good thing. Like if something is obvious, that means it was well developed, but also I don't want it to be super obvious either. I think the parts that I actually like had some issues with were all relationship wise. Like there were two specific deaths that I think if the relationships with those characters were better developed, more well done, then I would have liked like the reactions and the fallout from that a lot more. But overall, I still ended up liking this a lot. I'm excited to see where the next book goes because it ends on a pretty good note. This is Open Door, by the way, for a romantasy, which I'm neither here nor there with, but I enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun, so I'm giving it 4 stars. Alrighty, so last night I started As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. I'm not super far into it. Right about there, which is like about 3 chapters. They're very short chapters. I don't know how I feel about this. I have put the audiobook on hold just in case. I feel like this might be one of those books that is going to take me a little while to get through, and it's short. It's short, but I think it might take me a little while to get through. And it might be one of those books that's just better on audio because, you know, flowery writing, I feel like for me is just better on audio. So yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do with this one. I have to finish my current audiobook first, which is The Everlasting by Alix. Harrow. I've made a lot of progress on it. I have about 2 hours left. I was enjoying this so much until recently, because this is a time travel book in a high fantasy world, which I love the idea of. I love this idea. This is an idea that I've actually had myself for like a book that I want to write, that I have been working on for a long time. So don't expect that anytime soon. But I'm just saying, this is an idea that I think is a really good idea at a macro level. Problem is, time travel, you need a lot of context for it to work. And there are other parts of this novel that I feel like there's a lot of context missing. This book is written like a low fantasy book, like similar to like the 10,000 Doors of January, which is set in our world, but it's set in a high fantasy world. So there's a lot of context that, like, in the 10,000 Doors of January, we have that context because we live in this world, right? But in this book, we don't live in this world. So there's a lot of context that's just missing. Like, for example, the main character, kind of out of place in the society that he lives in. Like, people look at him and automatically know that he doesn't, like, belong. So I assume he's, like, darker skinned or something like that than the other characters in the book. It doesn't straight up say that. It does say that, like, his mom or something is from somewhere else, like another country, but like, one, the country's not mentioned, but also, even if the country was mentioned, I don't have context in how the current country that he lives in relates to that country. There was a war in that country, so is this like an England-India situation, or is this like a Spain-Morocco situation? I don't know. It could be anything, but there's no context for it, and it also could be nothing like any of those situations, but I still need more of that context. But there's no history and lore developed in the story the way you would get from like an actual high fantasy book. So I'm struggling with the world building aspect of this book. I do like the characters, I do like the plot, I love the overall idea, and I'm enjoying it a lot, but I feel like for this book to be truly great, it needed to have like true high fantasy world building, and it just doesn't actually have that. I'm leaning towards like a 3.5 to 3.75 stars, but we'll see. Maybe the ending will win me over, because I am loving like the plot a lot. I love the idea of this. That side of the plot is going really well. I don't know, I'm very hit or miss with this one right now. So I just finished The Everlasting by Alix Harrow, and despite my criticisms of it, I still love this. I loved the plot of it. I loved the ending. I think it was really well done. I just wish there was more world building. That's all. Like, I just really, really wish there was more world building. I think there are some parts where I kind of want them to like dive a little bit deeper into the story too, because there's a section where there's other characters that come in, but we don't get to learn too much about those other characters. But I feel like it would definitely make me more emotionally tied to the story if we got to know those other characters a little bit more. Like, I can't give this anything less than 4 stars. Honestly, I'm leaning towards like a 4.25 star for this, because even though it's not exactly what I wanted, it gave me a lot of what I wanted from this book. So 4.25 stars. This is definitely a book that I can see myself rereading though. So I did a thing. Do you see the thing that I did? I've been hearing about this book so much that I was just like, kind of have to read it. But my library only has the first book, first of all, and it said I'd have to wait 6 weeks for it, but the hardcover was available for $13. So I was just like, why am I not buying this? It's cheap. If I end up liking it, well, I don't know if I'm gonna buy the rest of the series on hardcover, just because they're like $30 each, and I very rarely buy a hardcover for $30. Very rarely. Like, I have to really, really love it. So maybe I'll ask for it for like Christmas, maybe, or it's available on Kindle Unlimited, and Amazon has been asking me to do a free 30-day trial. So free or $30 a book. I'm just saying, I do like the hardcover though. Look how pink it is. I thought it was red. It's not red. It's like a dark pink, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it so much. So I'm hoping I end up liking this. I'm probably gonna read this sooner rather than later. I say that, but I am just stacking up the books that I need. We have Calabasas, of course, which is out of the dust jacket, but I haven't started reading it yet, even though I said I would read it this week. And now we have Dungeon Crawler Call, and I mentioned this in my video yesterday. I also bought Legends and Lattes, so that's 2 more in addition to the Raven's Collar, which I bought last week. So yeah, I'm just starting to slowly accumulate books again. So I need to get to these, preferably in the month of November, so that I'm not just adding more unread books to my shelf. As for my reading updates, I did finish As I Lay Dying yesterday by William Faulkner. I did switch to the audiobook. I didn't care for this that much. Like, I understand what it's going for, but I was just not interested in the material. It was similar to the feeling that I had with Razorblade Tears, where I just never would have picked this book up if it wasn't for like a prompt telling me to pick it up. Like I just don't think it's something that I'm that interested in. And honestly, like, there was this like thing where like Faulkner and Hemingway had like an ideological difference in how they think writing should be, where Hemingway thought it should be more like pared down, while Faulkner obviously wanted more words and stuff. And I kind of agree with Hemingway. I'm just saying, I think Hemingway's writing is better than Faulkner's, in my opinion. That's just my style though. So maybe other people have different opinions. Let me know in the comments if you have any opinion on this. I'd love to hear about that. But honestly, I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. Like, a very middle of the road for me. Like, I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it, even though, like, I was hoping that I would end up loving it. Maybe I'll try a different Faulkner book that's set in, like, somewhere else, because I feel like this setting didn't help me love it more either. Also, I haven't been talking about it, but I have been making progress on The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I'm enjoying it. I just don't have that much to say about it, which is weird for me because I love Joe Abercrombie and I love his books, but this one is just kind of middle of the road for me. Like, I'm enjoying it. I think it's a good time, but it's not like out there amazing like I found like a lot of his other books to be. So it's fine. I probably won't finish it this week, but I will definitely be finishing it next week. Ooh. Oh my gosh, that was weird. I went to Disney yesterday and my legs are just not having it today. Mind you, I'm pretty energetic today. I think I just slept really well last night, partially because of how much moving I did yesterday, but my legs are not feeling the best, especially my left leg for some reason. It is, I guess I put more weight on my left leg or something. In case you're wondering, I don't normally go to Disney this often. It's just, I've lived near Disney World, 15 minutes away, for the last, I want to say like 7 years, 8 years. And this year is the first year that I've actually gone to Disney during that time period. I got an annual pass like a couple months ago. So I've basically been going just as often as I can, but it also means that like today, I'm kind of feeling it a little bit, but it's okay because it gives me an excuse to just relax and read all day. I do think I want to get some exercise in, but probably not like walking or anything like that. If I have a chance, I might see like when it's hot in the afternoon to go for like a little swim or something, because that might be a little less stress on my legs. But like I said, it gives me an excuse to basically just sit around all day. And what better to do when you're sitting around than getting some reading in? And I think I've met most of the goals that I have been wanting to do this week, but there is one thing I wanted to do that I did not get around to, and that's reading Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. Dust jacket over here, but honestly, the physical book is just as beautiful. This is something at the end of last week that I thought I would get to like at the beginning of this week, and somehow I got sidetracked from not reading this, but it's definitely time. Also, one of the challenges in HRCYED is to do one of the previous challenges from round 1, and one of those challenges is read a 500 plus page book in one day. This is about 560 pages, so it meets the qualifications, and I feel like it might be the type of book that I can read in one day, and I feel like I have the perfect day today where I'm kind of just gonna be lazing around. So maybe I started it. It's about 11:30 a.m. right now. I started it, say like half an hour ago, and I've read one chapter, like almost nothing. So I don't know if it's that possible, but I do have access to both the physical book and the audiobook. If I do feel like I want to get up and actually do stuff, I can always just switch the audiobook for a short time, but I'm enjoying this so much, I might just stick with the physical book for now. So in the first chapter, we get introduced to two main characters. Protagonist, who's Alice Law, and then Peter, I forgot his last name, is like her rival slash the guy that's gonna go to hell with her. It's a whole thing. But we also get introduced to like the atmosphere of this like cutthroat magical version of Cambridge, which I love. And there is one of the most gruesome scenes in the first chapter, which normally I don't care for like gruesome scenes, but I think it was just really well done. So I ended up liking it. Like, I felt like the writing reminded me a lot. So there's one book that I specifically love because of the writing. It's called The Night Circus, and there's one scene in particular that I remember just so well. Like, it's like an iconic moment for me in just like understanding writing style, and it's a scene at the very beginning where like this cup breaks and then the author describes it like coming back together. Like, it's a magical like writing magic type of scene. It's just so iconic in my head for me, going like, oh wow, the writing is really good in this book. And that scene in this book for me was the gruesome scene. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna love this book, even though it was a very like gross scene, but it's grimdark in the best way possible, and it's actually so far been really great. I think I'm really gonna like the main character too. She's definitely morally ambiguous, which I love, and she's also really motivated. I feel like a lot of characters in books, like the motivation is not as like, I don't know, like, I don't want to say cutthroat again, but like she is just so like ambitious in a way that like I personally would never be this ambitious. Like, I'm not that ambitious, honestly. This character is just so ambitious in the best way possible, and I'm loving it so much. So I think she's gonna be a very interesting point of view to read from, and I'm excited to learn more about Peter as well. So I'm really excited for this, and I'm excited to see like what hell looks like and all of that and how that plays out. There were like a few like things too, like that are like callbacks to like other things. Like, she says at one point like hell is other people, which I read a book in high school, I think it was, called No Exit, where basically that was like the whole theme of the book. So I thought that that was fun. I'm hoping I can just find like other things like that in this book, but so far I am really enjoying it, and I think it would be really cool if I can finish it in one day and meet that other goal as well. Alrighty, so I am now more than halfway through Calabasas by R.F. Kuang, and I have to say I do think I'm gonna finish it today because I have a good portion of the day left, and I am enjoying this a lot. Like, I had to go back and read some of the like bad reviews because it's gotten quite a bit of bad reviews, because I don't understand why it's getting so many bad reviews. What I've been seeing is people are saying like, oh, it's dense and not fast-paced, and like, I don't feel that at all. Maybe it's because I'm reading it quickly that I'm not feeling that, but like, it doesn't feel very dense for me. I think part of it is a lot of the reviews I've seen mentioned that they also felt like Babel was dense, but like that it was purposefully dense, where I didn't really feel like Babel was that dense. I felt like the world building was good in Babel, but I didn't feel like it was dense, if that makes sense. This is definitely more dense than Babel, so if you thought Babel was dense, this is gonna be more than that. But for me, that one was like, I don't know, it was very obvious. Like, it was very easy to read, whereas this one, I wouldn't necessarily say it's easy to read, but I'm enjoying it a lot, if that makes sense. I love these characters. I think I just finished the chapter where we get like Peter's backstory, which I enjoyed so much. Like, I was not expecting his backstory, and Alice is amazing. I love Alice as a character. Obviously, like, if I knew her in person, I probably wouldn't like her very much. Like, I would probably think she's like stuck up or whatever, but I love her as a character so much. The emotional turmoil that she goes through, check the trigger warnings. I'm sure there's trigger warnings somewhere for this. It gets darker than I was expecting to from an emotional perspective. So I'm really enjoying this, and I'm excited to see where it's going. I'm probably not going to check in again today, but I will give my final thoughts on it tomorrow morning, and I think this could potentially be a 5-star. Like, I really think it is. Alrighty, so I did finish Calabasas by R.F. Kuang last night around 11 p.m. I did not feel like jumping on camera right at that time. I really just wanted to go to sleep because I had to work today. So I did complete the read a 500+ page book in one day, and one of Q's recommendations. So I believe it was an Instagram reel I saw this on. That is what this one is going to work towards, which is interesting in my opinion, because there are a lot of other like options this could be used for, like my subgenres of choice. It could be used for like historical fiction. It could be used for spooky creatures because there are magical beings here. There are a lot other spookier creatures, I think, also. They're just not like your typical spooky creatures. Like, the world building in this is fantastically done. I will say, like, I was 100% like, this book is amazing. I love it so much up until like the second to last chapter. And then I was kind of like, what? Yeah, it threw me off a little bit there at the end. It also felt like it ended kind of abruptly, which shouldn't have surprised me, but it still surprised me. I read most of the end of it, like physically. So like, I knew the ending was coming. I could see there were only a few pages left, but at the same time, I'm like, I feel like there's a lot of story still left to tell that hasn't been told yet. There were 2 or so twists at the end, both of which I kind of saw coming. I didn't know how they were gonna come, but I kind of saw it coming. It happened. One of them I was really happy about, but the other one felt a little unearned in my opinion. But I still ended up loving this so much. I was deciding between a 4.75 to 5-star, and like, I have to remind myself that just because it's a 5-star doesn't mean it's a perfect book. So that's what I'm going with, because I enjoyed myself thoroughly with this book while I was reading it. I probably wouldn't have read it in one day if it wasn't for the challenge, but because I would have switched between this and The Devil's audiobook, still I enjoyed reading it in one day, and it did keep my attention the entire time. Like, I enjoyed every second of this. I love the world building, really love the characters. The characters, I think, are what really made this book for me, and I do think it delved in some really interesting thematic elements as well. So thoroughly enjoyed this book. Honestly, I do not understand the bad ratings because I absolutely give it 5 stars. So in summation of whole episode 1, I have made a lot of progress. For the bingo board, I have completed 2 of the bingo spots. Yes, that's right, 2 spots. The first one probably are like, what? We didn't see that, because I had to cut it out of this video for length purposes. So the 24-hour readathon, I did a whole separate vlog on that that'll be coming out in a couple of days, so look out for that. But I did complete the 24-hour readathon, and I also completed the favorite HRCYED 1 cycle, which was the 500+ page book in one day. Then I also made progress on subgenres of choice, the last 10 years. More details on that one in the upcoming video, in addition to the quote challenge. In this video, you guys obviously have seen the As I Lay Dying, but the other books I did read in the 24-hour readathon. on. I also made progress on animal friends because there is a horse that is a pretty prominent feature in As I Lay Dying. The new releases because The Everlasting is a new release for the month of October. And as I mentioned, Q's recommendations because Catabasis is one of her Instagram reels. So that is all I have for you. If you are participating in this challenge or want to participate, let me know down in the comments. I really love this challenge. I think the creator of the challenge is so creative and I'm super excited to continue on with it. Let me know in the comments what you think, and if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.